Bride of the Vampire, written by Samantha Faulkner, narrated by Alison Campbell. I have never been the kind of girl to take offence at an offhand introduction. Different places have different ways of greeting people. In some countries it will be a stiff handshake, in others a bear hug or a kiss on the cheek. But I think it's a bit much, within half an hour of arriving at the train station in a foreign country, to find yourself being chased through a forest by a horde of pitchfork-wielding yokels who are convinced you are a witch. It's enough to give a girl a complex. The clothes I am wearing don't exactly help. I was told to blend in with the locals. Apparently long white dresses are all the rage in this part of the world. That's all very well at dinner time, but try pelting through the woods after dark in a gown that hangs down to your ankles, and you'll soon come a cropper. I keep tripping over the hem. A catsuit or a miniskirt would suit me better. That is what I am used to wearing. This dress has a neckline so low I am in serious danger of spilling out of the top. I have been in the Democratic Republic of Transurania for less than 3 hours, and I am already fed up. If I wasn't under orders, I would spin around, open fire, and reduce my pursuers to a pile of blood and bones. My boobs are fitted with automatic machine guns, and, in the old days, I wouldn't have hesitated to use them. I am a fembot. That is what we do. But nowadays I work for British intelligence, and, for some reason, they are not too keen on indiscriminate slaughter. Worse still, I have been given strict instructions not to draw attention to myself. Massacring a bunch of peasants, even in self-defence, is just not on the agenda. Oh well, I suppose I will have to outrun them, always assuming I don't fall flat on my arse in this stupid dress. To make matters worse, I am carrying a rather hefty suitcase with me. I could drop it and make my escape at full pelt, but I'm damned if I'm going to go without a change of knickers just because some idiot locals have taken it into their heads that I am a witch. It's not as if I'm wearing a pointy hat or anything. The trees part before me, and I sprint out into a narrow country lane. My chest is heaving from all the exertion, and I take a moment to get my bearings. Strictly speaking, my chest doesn't need to heave. Androids are incapable of losing their breath. But I am programmed to simulate human behaviour, and, if I were a real woman, I would be completely knackered by now. I must have run over 2 miles already. There is a large building up ahead, a church, visible in outline via the light of the moon. Perhaps I can find somebody in there who might provide me with a little refuge away from the slavering hordes. I hoik my dress up to my waist and vault over the church gates into the graveyard. The cemetery is an eerie place. A dim fog permeates the cold night air. An owl hoots menacingly in the distance, and, just for the hell of it, there is a rumble of thunder. If I really were a young woman, all alone in a churchyard like this, wearing a ridiculously flimsy dress, I might perhaps be a little spooked out. Luckily, we fembots are made of sterner stuff. I see the entrance to the church up ahead, but as I move towards it, my foot snags on something heavy. I crouch down and let out a gasp of horror. Again, this is pure theatrics. I don't really need to gasp. But there is a dead body lying beside the gravestone in front of me, so it seems an appropriate response. The young man's face is frozen in terror. His body is frozen too, or at least deadly cold. My eyeballs have switched to infrared, and there is no sign of any heat. I see 2 puncture marks, though, on the side of his neck. The body has been drained of blood. I know the conclusion most people would draw from this, but I don't believe it for a minute. This is the 20th century. There is no such thing as vampires. Whatever happened to this poor young man, it had nothing to do with the undead. The villagers have arrived at the church gate, with their pitchforks and burning torches. I have a sneaking suspicion that being discovered standing over a desiccated corpse will not go down well with them.
"There she is!"
a voice calls out gleefully.
"Looks like she's killed someone,"
a second villager adds in excitement.
"Sucked his blood out to a warrant. Maybe she's not a witch. Perhaps she's a vampire."
Great, I think. My day is complete. I rise up rapidly from the corpse, intent on heading for the church door, but my ridiculous dress snags again, sending my bosom sprawling and the rest of me sprawling with them. My head smacks against the gravestone as I fall, a small spark of static electricity jumping between it and my electronic eyeballs. Briefly, my core processor short-circuits. Before I can recover my senses, a man is standing over me with a pitchfork. 20 minutes later, I find myself tied to a stake in a wooded clearing, a few hundred yards from the church. Timber has been piled up neatly beneath me, and my hands have been tied behind my back. The villagers have gone to an awful lot of trouble. The wood was already in place. It is almost as if they were expecting me. Or perhaps they were just keeping it ready on the off chance that a witch might happen to come by. Flaming torches have been distributed among the villagers. They are a miserable lot, faceless and aggressive. I uploaded a special foreign language algorithm for this mission, a recent innovation from the Boys in K division. But even with that, I am struggling to understand their thick yokel accents. Their intentions are obvious, however. They are trying to make me confess that I am a witch.
"A vampire too!"
a toothless crone exclaims. She looks more like a witch than I do. She has a crooked nose and 2 distinctive warts.
"I saw them marks on yon body. 'Twas the devil's work."
I'm not a vampire, I explained to her calmly. And I'm not a witch. I'm a visitor to your country, and I must say—
"Don't listen to her!"
a skinny lad cries out from behind. He must be all of 17.
"She'll bewitch us all."
Chance would be a fine thing. A bit of bewitching might persuade them to let me go. As it is, I can't even shoot my way out now. A touch of machine gun fire would probably be justified at this stage, but the thick ropes fastening me to the stake are wound uncomfortably tight around my bust. I've been trying very hard to activate my gun barrels, but they just won't pop out.
"You have been found guilty of witchcraft and vampirism,"
one of the more articulate villagers proclaims. I'm guessing this is the head man. He has a rugged beard and black pinhole eyes.
"Your soul must be cleansed with fire." "Does fire kill a vampire?"
the teenager asks with interest.
"I don't rightly know, Josh,"
the older man shrugs.
"But there's one way to find out."
He grins and tosses a flaming torch at the pyre. The other villagers merrily follow his lead. The shift in temperature hits me almost at once. The bonfire is alight. Smoke and flames are dancing around my feet. My nasal receptors are swiftly clogged by the fumes, and I am forced to shut them down. I wish I could say fembots are immune to fire. My titanium skeleton might last a little longer than human bones, but the rest of me is silicon and plastic, and that will burn just as happily as a roast chicken on a spit. Which is not a pleasant simile just now, come to think of it.
"Burn! Burn!"
the villagers are chanting merrily. My ankle-length dress will be the first thing to catch fire. Cotton isn't known for its flame-retardant qualities.
"Death to the witch!"
the teenager cries out, just for a bit of variety. I think they are expecting me to scream and writhe in agony, but I refuse to give them the satisfaction. If I have to melt away in a blazing inferno, I will do so with the quiet dignity of an MI6 fembot. A gunshot rings out across the trees. The villagers whirl round almost as one. A coach has drawn up just beyond the clearing. I would have heard it arrive but for the crackle of the fire and the incessant chanting. A dashing young man in a tall hat and fine clothes has stepped down from the coach. He raises a second pistol into the air. "Stop this at once!" he commands, with the natural authority of an educated man. His words, at least, are easy to understand. He steps forward and regards the bonfire with alarm. "What on earth do you think you are doing?" His eyes meet mine, and I am pleased to see the horrified expression on his face. I am assuming he is appalled at my circumstances rather than the sight of my face. I usually look quite pretty by torchlight.
"She's a witch!"
the toothless crone declares with a delighted gurgle.
"She's a vampire!"
the head man agrees.
"She must burn!"
The young gentleman is having none of it. "Nonsense," he says. "She's just an ordinary girl. Untie her at once." The villagers are reluctant to comply.
"She's a vampire!"
the head man insists.
"We found poor Will Harker in the graveyard. He'd been drained of blood. She was standing over him."
"I'd only just got there," I call out from behind a wall of smoke. "I didn't have time to drain his blood."
"You keep out of this mess,"
the head man snarls.
"She's a witch too. She had a black cat in her arms."
Here we go again. The cat ran out in front of me. What was I supposed to do? Run over it? But I am not given the chance to explain.
"This is Mistress Shagwell,"
the gentleman informs them, coming forward. "Our new school teacher. She has just arrived by train from England. She is not a vampire or a witch." The penny drops. This is the man who was meant to meet me at the railway station. If the train hadn't arrived early, none of this would have happened.
"I saw the puncture marks,"
the crone declares cheerfully.
"'Twas a vampire that killed young Master William."
"There is no such thing as vampires," the gentleman snaps. At last, someone with an ounce of common sense. "It's just mindless superstition."
"You should have seen his neck,"
the old crone responds.
"Hold a cross to her face,"
the head man challenges.
"Then you'll see."
The gentleman shrugs and pulls out a small crucifix which is hanging on a chain around his neck. He holds it in my direction. "See? She doesn't even flinch."
"You're not close enough,"
the head man says.
"I can hardly get any closer."
The old crone has another idea.
"I have a clove of garlic,"
she says. Without waiting to be invited, she pulls it out of her pocket and lobs it through the flickering flames at my head. It bounces off my nose, but I make a point of not reacting. "You see? She's not a vampire. Release her at once." The villagers mumble unhappily.
"I should wait until morning,"
someone suggests.
"If she's a vampire, her body will crumple to dust."
The head man is not having that.
"It's not even midnight yet. I'm not waiting till dawn."
I'm unlikely to last that long anyway. Another 5 minutes should do it if someone doesn't put these flames out. My feet are already beginning to smoulder.
"We could put a stake through her heart,"
the teenager suggests, helpfully.
"Or lop her head off,"
the crone adds.
"That would prove she was a vampire."
The young gentleman is exasperated.
"But then she'd be dead."
He waves his pistol angrily and at last decides to take matters into his own hands. He can't get at me from the front of the fire, but there is a gap at the rear where the flames haven't really caught yet. He works his way around the edge of the bonfire. Great. His first proper look at me, and all he can see is my enormous arse. Isn't that always the way? He stows his pistol, then produces a knife from his pocket and hacks away at the rope. In seconds I am free, and he is helping me down onto safer ground. The villagers are not happy. Pitchforks are being waved discontentedly. The gentleman places himself between me and the murderous locals.
"She's a witch!" they call out. "A vampire!"
I wish they would make up their minds.
"She's just an innocent girl," the gentleman insists. "She's as human as I am."
The head man shakes his head.
"You should have seen young Willie." "I'm sorry about Will, but whatever happened to him, it was none of her doing."
The villagers step forward, and my rescuer draws out his pistol again. I have half a mind to whip out my own weaponry, but goodness knows what the sight of machine-gun boobs would do to these superstitious fools.
"This woman is under my protection," the young gentleman declares. "She is a school teacher like me. I know you are frightened. I know several people have died in mysterious and deeply unpleasant circumstances, but she cannot be held responsible for that. She has only just arrived. She is a guest in our country. I'm leaving now, and I am taking Miss Shagwell with me."
He grasps my hand and directs me to the coach. The villagers mutter, but they do not try to stop him. I am glad when the carriage door shuts and we finally move away. In the dim light, I am now able to take a proper look at my rescuer. He is tall and earnest-looking, with brown shoulder-length hair and an improbably symmetrical head. He introduces himself as Jonathan Clemens. He is rather good-looking for a school teacher, with a boyish face but lively, serious eyes. "How are you feeling?" he asks, settling down opposite me in the carriage. He is too much of a gentleman to squash up on the same side.
"That must have been an awful experience."
"I've had worse," I say. I glance down at my dress, which is torn and blackened around the edges. I'm a little singed, but none the worse for wear. I will need a change of clothes, though, and a bath to get rid of the stink. Perhaps we can stop off at the church to pick up my suitcase.
"The people hereabouts, they're very superstitious," Clemens explains. "There have been some odd things happening of late, but they are good people. They're just not very—"
He searches for the right word. "Bright?" I suggest. He nods earnestly.
"No, not very bright." "Why on earth didn't you wait for me at the station?"
I shrug. "The train was early. I thought a brisk walk would do me good." Clemens is stern.
"A young lady shouldn't walk about in the woods alone after dark. It's not safe."
"So I've discovered." He peers across at me curiously.
"Why did they take you for a witch?"
I might as well tell him the truth, though it is a little embarrassing. "A black cat ran out in front of me on the road." Clemens shudders. He is not quite as free from superstition as he would like me to believe. "It looked a little lost, so I picked it up. I was going to take it with me to the village to see if it belonged to anyone. But then, all of a sudden, this band of villagers crashed out of the trees. They saw me with a black cat in my hands, and that was that."
"You ran? Like the clappers? I wasn't going to end up on one of those pitchforks."
Clemens understands that well enough.
"So, what happened to the cat?"
"I have no idea. It scratched me and then ran away. I sprinted for dear life, and then, when I got to the church, I stumbled across that body."
"Poor Will Harker, yes. I've known him since he was a baby."
"He couldn't have been more than 20, the poor lamb. And I gather he's not the first person to be sucked dry like that." Clemens shakes his head sadly. That is part of the reason I am here, of course. There have been disturbing rumours of dark experiments taking place up at the castle, whispers of a new and dangerous technology, a technology that could pose a threat to the stability of the world. British intelligence has dispatched me to investigate, but subtlety is the watchword. Transurania is an explosive place. The country is well behind the Iron Curtain, and everybody here is a potential spy. A bump in the road sends a shudder through the carriage. I am not quite sure why we are travelling in a coach in the first place. Don't you have any cars in this country? I ask. I was expecting a taxi at the railway station, but I haven't seen a single motor vehicle since I arrived. The roads here are not really suitable for motor cars. We don't use them much in Transurania. I shake my head. You must think us very backward, Miss Shagwell. I'll say. The industrial might of the Soviet Union clearly hasn't penetrated this far into Central Europe. We might as well be in the Dark Ages. But I always like to be polite when I have been rescued from certain death, so I keep my opinions to myself. The breakfast table is my first opportunity to meet the family I will be lodging with for the next few days. They are an odd-looking bunch. Mrs. Beswick, the housekeeper, I met briefly last night. She is a thin, shrewish woman, plainly dressed but rather efficient. She showed me up to my room when I first arrived, and was kind enough to provide a candle and a basin full of water. The vicarage is a small building with a thatched roof, 3 bedrooms, and no electricity, though it does have a pleasing view of the village green. The parson is a sour-faced man, an angry zealot with silver hair, forever on the lookout for sin. The devil lurks behind every door, he intones gracelessly, before we are permitted to take a single bite of bread at the breakfast table. Do not let him in, lest he possess your soul and force you to commit acts of unspeakable depravity. His tongue lingers on those last 2 words, as if savouring the thought. We must be ever vigilant against fornication. Again, the lavish emphasis. And for what we're about to receive, may we be truly thankful. Amen. The last bit he rushes through at some speed. I feel rather sorry for his 2 nieces, who are sat opposite me at the table. Victoria and Ingrid are dressed in identical white robes. They are twins, fresh-faced and well-upholstered, with long blonde hair and shockingly pale skin. I am an expert in human facial geometry, and even I can't tell them apart. They might as well be fembots, except I can see the blood coursing through the veins in their necks. Lots of blood, actually. It looks a little unnatural throbbing away like that. The 2 sisters are discussing the death of Will Harker the previous evening. Poor little Willie, Victoria laments. She is the younger of the 2 girls, though only by about half an hour. He was such a nice boy. Ingrid disagrees. He was dull and stupid, she declares dismissively. The parson, who has only just seated himself, will not accept that. We do not speak ill of the dead, he bellows. No matter what vile and despicable crimes they may have committed. Crimes? I raise an eyebrow. Fornication, devil worship. Who knows what goes through the enfeebled mind of a teenage boy in the face of such temptation as this? He gestures contemptuously at his nieces. Ingrid apologises to her uncle half-heartedly. Then she turns to me. I hear you were nearly burnt to death last night. That must have been absolutely thrilling. Her eyes are alight with excitement. It was a misunderstanding, I say.
The devil's work, the parson thunders.
Victoria is more sympathetic. It must have been so frightening for you. I dab my mouth with a napkin. I don't really do frightened, but it was a bit bizarre. I am more concerned to find out about these other deaths. As I understand it, Will Harker is not the first person to have had his body sucked dry. Victoria cuts across me before I can inquire further. Uncle, have you seen Tabitha this morning? She didn't come when I put her food down. Parson Nathaniel scowls.
That damned cat! The devil's spawn! I should never have allowed you to bring it here.
I cough and say nothing as Mrs. Beswick plonks some meat onto the table. I have a nasty feeling Tabitha may be the cat I encountered last night. I have been reviewing the scene in my mind, and I have the strangest feeling the village folk were chasing it before they had the good fortune to stumble across me. They must have thought they'd won the pools. What I cannot fathom is why they would chase a domestic cat in the first place. Surely even these villagers aren't stupid enough to want to burn an animal for witchcraft. Or perhaps they are. I watch the twins as they tuck into their food. They really are remarkably similar. Victoria sips her tomato soup delicately, while Ingrid grabs a side of beef and tears the flesh off with her teeth.
Hurry!
The parson insists.
Lateness is the devil's work.
A dozen students are sitting behind a row of desks in the brightly lit schoolroom. It is rather disconcerting, not to mention statistically improbable, to see so many blonde, blue-eyed girls gathered together in one place. They are dressed in a uniform shade of white, and none of them ever seems to stop giggling. Jonathan Clemens is on hand to introduce me. I can tell they all adore their master, as only teenage girls can. Clemens is certainly good-looking, if a trifle wet, but there is probably not much competition in the village. The students, like Ingrid and Victoria at the breakfast table, are keen to hear all about my near burning last night. The twins are sat at the front of the class, Victoria prim and proper with a pencil and paper prepared, Ingrid with shoulders slumped, doodling languidly on the desk with a crayon. The girls may be identical physically, but I am beginning to suspect there may be some difference in temperament. "Have you seen the castle, miss?" one of the other students asks. This is Madeline, the head man's daughter. She is the only dark-haired girl in the room. She is the picture of innocence, wide-eyed and cherubic, but she is not innocent at all, at least not according to the graffiti in the girls' toilets. The difference in hair colour, though, seems to give her a certain cachet with the other girls. She giggles mischievously. "Up on the hill," she adds. "I caught a glimpse of it this morning," I admit, with an automated shudder. Castle Nastasia is a grim, forbidding fortress which overlooks the village. So far as I can tell, it is perpetually shrouded in mist. The castle is home to the sinister Count Vetrikinski, the scientist I have come to investigate. "Nobody ever sees the Count," Madeline informs me when I mention him by name. "I'm going to see him," Ingrid declares, determined to court controversy. "I'm going to steal away and visit him in the night." Victoria, her sister, is agog. "You mustn't," she exclaims. "Uncle would be furious."
Nobody will be visiting Castle Nastasia, Clemens tells them firmly. Especially not after dark. It isn't safe for young girls to be out on their own. You know what happened to the cartman's daughter? Victoria shivers, and a couple of the other students cross themselves. Ingrid is happy to provide the ghoulish details. "Drained of blood," she explains to me, "like boring old William." "He's not boring," Victoria insists. He was very sweet. Will and Victoria were apparently good friends. Poor little Willie, she sighs, cut off in the prime of life. Best not to dwell on it, the schoolteacher advises her sympathetically. Talking of the castle, I say, did I tell you I have an invitation to dinner there? There is a collective gasp from the girls. Jonathan Clemens stares at me in dismay. An invitation? To dinner? That's right. I wrote to the Count before I left England, expressing an interest in the history of Transurania. He very kindly invited me to visit him. I'm going up there this evening. The schoolteacher is lost for words. I want to come, Ingrid pipes up. Take me too. Hush, girl, Clemens says. He draws me aside urgently. Miss Shagwell, I urge you to decline the invitation. There are rumours of dark goings-on in that castle. I thought you were a man of science, Mr. Clemens. I am, but one cannot ignore the evidence of one's own eyes. I'm a big girl, I assure him. I can take care of myself. The warnings come thick and fast. Parson Nathaniel is outraged at the very idea of anyone visiting Castle Nastasia. To him, Count Vetrikinski is a godless heathen. Mrs. Beswick backs him up, in a rare moment of domestic accord. Only Ingrid, or is it Victoria, seems in any way enthused, and the parson sends her off to bed early for her impertinence. Wanton hussy, he declares, a viper in my bosom, it's the devil's work. The cartman who takes me up to the castle is no less vehement. I reckon things have gone from bad to worse since the old Baron died, he tells me. These last few years, so many people have gone missing, so many bodies found. My daughter, she was a serving maid, worked up at the castle for 2 weeks, and she disappeared. Her body's never been found. Goodness, I am sorry to hear that. I have 2 other daughters, the man replies stoically. 2 of them died of the plague, another one in childbirth. Then there was Maria. His face darkens. What happened to her? She was burnt at the stake, just like my dear wife. Good grief, and all this since the Count arrived? I took him up to the castle, you know, that very first day. Handsome as the devil he was, but cold as ice. You want to watch yourself, miss. Strange things happen to girls what go up to Castle Nastasia. As if to emphasize the point, a sudden burst of lightning illuminates the sky. It is getting dark as we pull up at the gate. A heavy drawbridge leads across a shallow moat dug into the side of the hill. Will you be able to collect me in a few hours? I ask, stepping down from the cart and pulling out my purse. The cartman draws in a breath. Oh, I dunno, miss. It depends upon the weather. Sounds like a storm is brewing. But the path's easy enough to follow back down to the village. It's going to be a full moon tonight. He casts me a meaningful glance and flicks the reins of his horse. I watch as his little cart clatters back down the road towards the village. All at once I am alone, with the harsh and unwelcoming gates of Castle Nastasia directly in front of me. I move across the drawbridge and the temperature drops 3 degrees. I step backwards and the temperature rises again. That is very odd. I have my own internal thermometer, so I know I am not imagining it. The closer I am to the doors, the colder it gets. A long bell pull on a rope hangs down to the left of the doors. I yank the chain firmly, dampening my audio receptors in expectation of a huge clang, but all I hear is a muted electric buzz. Somebody in this backwater does have electricity then. Footsteps thump heavily towards me, and the large oak doors swing open with a monumental creak. A bear of a man stands inside the doorway. He is as ugly as sin, with eyes at 90-degree angles.
"You are expected,"
he says, his voice a deep rasp.
"Come this way."
There is something very odd about him. His movements are stiff and inhuman. I step inside the hallway and behind me the doors thud closed, seemingly of their own volition. Count Vetrikinski is seated at a long table in a cavernous dining room. The chamber is lit entirely with candles and wind howls through the windows. A roaring fire keeps the place warm, however, as the Count and his companion rise to greet me. The man is tall, pale-faced but strikingly handsome. His hair is swept back against his head, the streaks of grey giving him a distinguished appearance. It is his eyes, though, that draw my attention. They are a piercing blue, set against the white eyeballs, though with speckles of red creeping in at the edges. The Count takes my hand and kisses it gently. He is not a real count, at least not any longer. The title is purely honorary. The local nobility were allowed to keep their titles by the Russians in a rare concession to regional sensibilities, but Moscow has stripped them of all their land and power. I am surprised Vetrikinski has been allowed to hang on to the castle. I suppose as a scientist he must be more used to them here than he would be in an officially approved hovel. His lips are cold to the touch. I flick to infrared and realise with some surprise that his whole body is cold. He has no scent either, though my nasal receptors may be on the blink after that smoke from the bonfire last night. Half a minute has passed, and not a word has been spoken. There is something mesmerising about Vetrikinski. He has a strange sexual charisma that immediately draws the eye.
"I am glad to make your acquaintance,"
he intones at last, in a sombre, low-pitched voice.
"I believe you know my companion."
He gestures across to the girl. I give a start. It is Ingrid. Or maybe Victoria. No, definitely Ingrid. I was so focused on Vetrikinski I hadn't even noticed she was there. "What are you doing here?" She grins. "I snuck out of my bedroom and made my way through the forest." Ingrid puts a hand to her mouth and giggles. "Uncle will be so upset." She looks from me to the Count and I can see how enchanted she is. The girl is practically salivating.
"The young lady came to my door not 40 minutes ago. I could not turn her away without offering a little sustenance. Come, sit. Dinner is prepared."
It is a sumptuous meal of venison and sautéed vegetables. The Count eats little, but he is an erudite and accommodating host. He inquires about my long journey from England and is happy to tell me a little of the history of Castle Nastasia. "The people here do seem a bit superstitious," I say, determined to get to the nub of the matter. "Some of them even think you're a vampire." Count Vetrikinski does not react to that.
"I gather there have been some unfortunate incidents down in the village. Rest assured,"
he says,
"I am a scientist, not a vampire, and I am certain there is a rational explanation for all these events."
"Satanists!" Ingrid declares with enthusiasm, taking a leaf out of her uncle's book.
"There has been the suggestion of a satanic cult in operation,"
the Count agrees.
"I keep an open mind. Can I pour you some more wine?"
I nod cautiously. The man is the perfect host,
but I am still a little spooked by his lack of body heat. He is not an android, that much I do know. There is real flesh on those bones, though there doesn't seem to be much of a blood flow, and his body temperature defies belief. His manservant, Karloff, is similarly lacking in warmth. I'm curious to hear about your research, I say. I understand you're working on some new procedures for repairing and reanimating damaged body parts. Count Vetrikinski inclines his head.
You are very well informed.
He gestures to Karloff, who is pouring the wine.
I have had some success in this area. My manservant here has had many of his organs replaced, though, alas, his brain is not what it was. I have also had to replace a couple of worn-out limbs. Sadly, there is not much left of the original man.
My olfactory senses may not be working at full capacity, but there is a distinct smell of decay about him. Karloff, I realise suddenly, is nothing more than a walking corpse. Somehow Count Vetrikinski has reanimated a dead man. It is an astonishing achievement. What kind of metal do you use to replace the bones?
Stainless steel.
Titanium would work better, I suggest.
I bow to your wisdom, but Karloff is only a side project. There is so much more to my work here.
I would love to see your laboratory, I say. I'm eager to find out more about your research. The Count is polite but firm.
I'm afraid that will not be possible.
Abruptly, he changes the subject.
And Miss Ingrid, what do you make of your new school teacher?
Ingrid, who has been feeling somewhat abandoned for the last few minutes, lights up under Count Vetrikinski's penetrating gaze. School's boring, she declares. I don't think I'll be staying there much longer. I'm going to run away and see the world. I want to live my life like there's no tomorrow. I want to meet a handsome man, a mysterious man, a man with a slightly odd way of speaking who perhaps lives in a castle, an older man. The Count raises an eyebrow. The poor girl is practically throwing herself at him. I can't say I blame her, though. I am having to override my own human response protocols.
Be careful what you wish for, my dear, the Count says.
A gust of wind rattles through the dining hall, causing the candles to flicker and almost go out. A bolt of lightning illuminates the room, followed half a second later by a ripple of thunder. Rain starts to fall heavily outside. Count Vetrikinski rises to his feet and sweeps over to the window.
I fear the storm may be a bad one tonight.
He turns back to us with a solemn frown.
It will be a treacherous journey down to the village in this weather. Perhaps it would be better for you both to stay the night. Karloff will prepare rooms for you.
You're very kind, I say. Ingrid all but explodes with pleasure. I've never spent a night in a castle before, she gushes, oblivious to the danger. And as to what her uncle will say in the morning...
I hope you will enjoy the experience. But first, more wine.
The bedchamber is as cavernous as the dining hall and just as exposed to the elements. A four-poster bed lines one side of an inner wall, and a fire blazes opposite. But the room is cold and strangely airless. There is a rug on the floor and a grim portrait on the wall above the fireplace. It looks to be a painting of one of the Count's ancestors. I read the inscription underneath. Count Ludwig Vetrikinski, 1645 to 1792. The resemblance is remarkable. A nightdress has been laid out for me on the bed. a frilly negligee much more in keeping with my usual mode of dress than the long white robes I have been wearing hitherto. A chest of drawers contains further clothing. The Count's bedroom seems surprisingly well stocked with women's underwear. I don't allow myself to dwell on this fact as I slip the nightie over my head. I have no intention of going to bed, though. My audio receptors have been switched to maximum, and even over the roar of the storm I can make out Ingrid's voice giggling from the other side of the castle. It must be nearly midnight. She should be asleep by now, but she is not even in her bedroom. I tiptoe out into a shadowy upper corridor. The flicker of burning torches provides just enough light for me to navigate without resorting to infrared. I make my way down a winding staircase and find myself back in the entrance hall. The voices I have heard are coming from the far side of the fortress, well below the level of the main gate. I descend another stone staircase and eventually pull up outside a heavy wooden door. The door is ever so slightly ajar.
"You do this of your own free will?"
I hear the Count ask, his voice silky smooth. "I do," Ingrid gasps out of sight of me. I can almost picture her bosom quivering.
"I do not force you. I do not deceive you as to the consequences of your submission."
"You do not?"
"Then we must drink, and you must earn your immortality."
Footsteps clomp down the stairs behind me. Karloff is heading to the laboratory. I step back into the shadows in full stealth mode, and the great ape walks straight past me. He moves into the laboratory, and I catch a brief glimpse of Ingrid enfolded in Count Vetrikinski's bat-like arms before the door slams shut behind him. I quickly retire to my room. I don't understand how it has happened, but I have just fallen asleep. Worse than that, I have started to dream. This should not be possible. I am an android, for goodness sake. I don't do dreams. It must be a side effect of the storm. There is so much static electricity around, it is bound to cause a bit of disruption to my circuitry. Count Vetrikinski haunts my dreams. Initially, he is a welcome presence, until I catch sight of the bats descending towards me from the belfry. I am lying on the four-poster bed, but I do not seem to be able to move. It is a strangely distressing experience, even though I know it isn't real. When I get home, I will have to get the boys at K Division to give me a thorough overhaul. A clap of thunder finally rouses me from my slumber. The Count is looming over me, his eyes blood red, a pair of fangs extending from inside his mouth. I shrink back into the bedsheets in surprise.
"You came into my house of your own free will,"
Vetrikinski declares forcefully.
"Now you are mine."
I am too disorientated to put up any resistance. My chest is heaving again without even asking my permission. The Count leans into my neck and I feel his fangs puncturing the plastic flesh. All at once he stiffens and then pulls back in surprise. It is his turn to be confused.
"What are you?"
he breathes. I look up at the dark figure and blink. It feels good to have him on the back foot. An android, a fembot, didn't you know? He clearly didn't, but his eyes light up with interest.
"You look so real. I would not have believed it possible."
You'd be surprised at what people can do now.
"Indeed."
He extends a hand and pulls me up from the bed. His body is painfully close to mine. I can feel his cold breath on my face.
"You are not alive, but you are animate."
His eyes flicker up and down my torso.
"You have parts that can be replaced?"
I nod my head. Guaranteed for a couple of centuries.
Interesting.
His eyes sparkle, the red fading slightly.
I have been looking for a companion, a bride throughout the eons. Perhaps you might be the one.
I laugh. In your dreams, honey. Are you really a vampire? Vetrikinski smiles thinly.
Not quite. Come, I will show you what I am.
Another flash of lightning illuminates the bedchamber, and an instant later the thunder roars. If I had a heart inside me, it would have just missed a beat. The laboratory is full of bubbling test tubes and overflowing beakers. Arcane books fill the dusty shelves, but there is modern equipment too, circuit boards and processors. It is a strange mix of old and new, candlelight existing side by side with electrical power units. The arrangement is almost artistic. I have seen the lairs of quite a few megalomaniacs, but most of them have been bright and antiseptic. This makes a pleasing change. The laboratory has an old-school charm that reflects the character of its host. Ingrid is standing numbly in a corner. Her skin is deadly pale, and there are 2 puncture marks on her neck. I switch to infrared, and am glad to see there is still some warmth in her body. If she is becoming a vampire, the process is not yet complete. Her eyes stare blankly ahead, and the breeze from the window ruffles the hem of her long white robe.
Only the blackest of hearts can accept the gift of immortality,
the Count explains.
Her heart was not quite black enough.
He lifts up a beaker full of bubbling coloured liquid.
This potion is the result of a lifetime's work. Several lifetimes, in fact. An elixir of life, a means to defeat death. But as with all things, it comes with a price.
You drank that?
The first time, many years ago.
His dark eyes gleam at the memory.
I was transformed. My body temperature dropped. My cellular structure was rewritten. I became not quite dead, but not quite alive. My existence has been stretched indefinitely, but there are limitations. Any organism, even a member of the undead, requires nourishment. My skin is sensitive to the sunlight. I cannot walk abroad in daylight, and I need food, human blood to cleanse me and maintain my energy levels.
Sounds like you'd be better off with a dialysis machine, I suggest.
Ah, the wonders of modern technology. Alas, we know nothing of such things here. But the blood of a virgin suits me well enough.
He nods across at Ingrid. So he has had a bash at her already, the dirty sod.
She drank the elixir, but it did not fully transform her. Her life has been extended, but only for a short while. She may even be able to walk about in daylight. Another dose will complete the transformation. But perhaps I will keep her here like this, as a slave. She is not the bride I seek.
And you think I may be? Vetrikinski smiles beatifically.
Are you not immortal already?
Only theoretically.
The same is true for me. I can still suffer death, decapitation, a stake through the heart.
Burning?
I haven't had the opportunity to find out. But one thing I do know, the elixir gives strength to any who drink it. The same may even be true of you. Will you drink with me, Miss Shagwell? Will you dare to risk eternity?
I walk over to the far wall and look up. There is a window just above the level of the ground outside. The storm is easing now, and I catch a glimpse of the full moon, its white light beaming down upon us. Why not? I turn back to the Count and flash him a grin. Never turn down a drink with a good-looking vampire, that's what I say. And besides, I am a rationalist. I know that his strange bubbling potion can have no effect on me. I have no bloodstream, let alone any organic matter for the chemicals to subvert. Count Vetrikinski hands me the foaming beaker. I drink full and hard. This is what I am here to investigate. Rumours of resurrection and eternal life. What better way to discover the truth? I have sensors in my throat which should be able to determine the precise... I stop dead. A peculiar feeling is beginning to take hold of me. The funnel leading down from my throat into my atomic power unit is made of solid titanium. This strange concoction should not be able to burn through it. But I can feel the liquid suffusing outward somehow and encompassing my whole body. The Count's eyes light up.
You see,
he exclaims,
the elixir transforms even you.
I lift a hand to my face and stare at it in horror. The plastic and silicone flesh is starting to ripple in the moonlight. It is reshaping itself before my eyes. Hairs seem to be springing out across the length of my body. I open my mouth to let out a shriek, but at that moment, everything goes blank. Daylight is beating down on me from the high window. I am lying on the stone floor in the middle of the laboratory. My internal chronometer tells me that 7 hours and 33 minutes have passed since I drank the elixir, but I can remember nothing about it at all. Jonathan Clemens is crouching down next to me, his face a mosaic of brotherly concern. I pull myself onto my backside and clutch my head for a moment. What happened? I wonder if this is what it feels like to have a hangover. I have only ever simulated it before. I glance down at my arms and am glad to see my skin has reverted to its normal pink consistency. Perhaps the chemicals in that drink overloaded my circuits and I started to hallucinate. Clemens extends a hand and helps me to my feet. I'm not altogether sure, he says, glancing around the laboratory. Beakers have been overturned and there is broken glass on the floor. The place hasn't been completely trashed, but there has been a bit of a scuffle. I wish I could remember what happened. It's almost as if a wild animal got in here, Clemens observes. He points to some claw marks on a nearby bench. Are you all right, though? I nod uncertainly. I think so. When I heard you hadn't returned home last night, I was worried about you. I thought I'd better come up to the castle and see if you were okay. I shake my head, trying to clear the electronic cobwebs. In all honesty, I'm not sure if I am okay. Come and sit down. He grabs a stool and guides me gently over to it. He really is very sweet. There's no sign of the Count. Luckily, the main door wasn't locked, so I was able to sneak in. Actually, there's no sign of anybody. I haven't been down to the dungeons, though. Ingrid! I exclaim suddenly. Where is she? Clemens does not understand the question. Why? At the vicarage, of course. The parson is in a foul mood. Apparently she came down to breakfast this morning with some odd scratches on the side of her face. Scratches? My ears prick up. Victoria thinks her cat did it. She thinks Ingrid is hiding her and Tabitha lashed out, but Ingrid accused Victoria. She says she was annoyed about her attitude to Will Harker's death and scratched her out of spite. The parson is furious with the both of them. I have no interest in any of that. Scratches? You mean like the claw marks on that bench? Clemens grimaces. Well, yes, but whatever got in here, it wasn't Victoria's cat. That's for sure. And Ingrid was at home all night, so it can't have been the same animal. I look away for a moment. Are you sure about that? I have a nasty suspicion I know exactly what, or rather who, caused both sets of scratches. Lessons begin promptly at 9 a.m., but there is a girl missing from class. Madeline, the head man's daughter, has not come in for lessons. Her mother is distraught. The dark-haired girl was tucked up safely in bed last night, but she is nowhere to be found this morning. The rest of the class are mortified, all except Ingrid and Victoria. The twins are still arguing with each other in harsh whispers, while I discuss Madeline's disappearance with Jonathan Clemens. I use half an ear to eavesdrop on their conversation. You shouldn't have sneaked out like that last night, Victoria is telling her sister. I shouldn't have to lie for you. It's not fair. You'll do as you're told, Ingrid hisses, or I'll cut off all your hair and feed it to the cat. What have you done with her? Victoria demands. She is starting to sob now. What have you done with my pussy? Ingrid is dismissive. I haven't touched your pussy, and I wouldn't tell you where Tabitha was if I did know. Victoria sobs again. Why do you have to be so cruel? I don't have to be. Ingrid smiles. I just enjoy it. Settle down, girls, Clemens calls out. He has finished his discussion with me and returned his attention to the class. I will have to replay the conversation later on and see what we said. I know you are upset, he tells the girls, but there is nothing we can do for Madeline right now. A search is being organised, and if she is found, you will be the first to know. In the meantime, a bit of work may help to take your mind off things. His tone is not reassuring, but the poor lamb is doing his best. I think she went to meet a man, one of the bolder pupils suggests. She was always boasting about her conquests. That's enough of that, the school teacher snaps. He obviously hasn't seen the graffiti in the toilets. Clemens retreats to his office and I begin the morning's lesson. I do my best not to stare at Ingrid, who is sat at the back of the class today with her feet up on the desk. Even at this distance I can see the scratch marks on the side of her face, though she has plastered a fair bit of makeup on top. Did I cause that, I wonder? The girl stares back at me with undisguised hostility. Not afraid, then, but jealous of the attention I received from Count Vetrikinski last night. I wonder how much of that she remembers, and what happened to the Count this morning. He said he was allergic to sunlight. Perhaps he is asleep down in the dungeons, recovering after a night of violence and debauchery. The dogs have been out all afternoon, but still there is no sign of Madeline. I accompany Ingrid and Victoria back to the vicarage, but leave them at the front door and wander up to the church on my own. I am curious to learn more about the death of Will Harker, and I haven't had the chance to visit the graveyard in daylight. I also want to have a quiet word with Parson Nathaniel, who I gather is working on his latest sermon in a back room. For all his idiot slavering, the parson is the religious heart of the village. He must know more about the goings-on in these parts than anyone else, even Jonathan Clemens. 2 labourers are digging a grave on the near side of the cemetery as I make my way towards the front of the church. They tip their hats to me, but their eyes are hostile. There is a lot of hostility around today. Will Harker was an apprentice gravedigger, so one of these men is probably his father. Perhaps they are digging his grave. These 2 were part of the Pitchfork Brigade the other night, but I am under the protection of the parson now, so they are not actively trying to burn me. I enter the church through a large, creaking door. Sunlight is flittering vaguely through a stained glass window at the far end, but there is not enough light to alleviate the gloom within. There is mildew in the air and dry rot amid the pews. I head up the aisle past the confessional booth towards the font. I stop halfway along. My nasal receptors are beginning to come back online, and there is an odd aroma coming from the confessional. I move across, pull back the curtain, and let out a gasp of surprise. Slumped on the chair with blank, staring eyes is the girl half the village has been looking for, the beautiful, buxom, but now distinctly dead Miss Madeline. Her body is cold, her skin pale, and there are 2 puncture marks on her neck. I lean in close to get a better look. Another victim of Count Vetrikinski? He must have had a really busy night. The poor girl must have been dumped here some hours ago. The village will be in uproar when they find out. I suppose I ought to tell somebody. I stop myself, though, as I hear a set of voices wafting up from deep inside the church. A rhythmic chant has begun, but it is muffled and some distance away. There is a vestry off to the left of the font, and an open door leading down into the crypt. That is where the voices are coming from. I push the door open, grab a flaming torch, and start to descend. Figures are moving around in the darkness. I can see their body heat, although most of them are heavily robed. Even their faces are covered with elaborate demonic masks. The chanting is getting louder, though the words are obscure, Latin, perhaps, and the figures are dancing rather clumsily around a heavy stone altar. An animal is staked out on top of it. It looks rather small set against the solid stone. The creature has been cut open and its blood drained. So that is what happened to Victoria's pussy. Poor old Tabitha. They must have caught her and kept her here all this time, ready to be sacrificed. They really were chasing her through the forest. Before I get the chance to reflect on the peculiarity of this, another hooded figure sidles forward from an alcove behind me. My circuits must really be out of order. I should have noticed him before. As it is, I barely have time to raise a hand in greeting before he smacks me across the head with an iron bedpan. I seem to spend a great deal of time these days unconscious and flat on my back. It is not part of my design specifications. I think I might enjoy it a little more if I didn't keep waking up to find myself in imminent peril. Sacrificing pussycats is one thing, but sacrificing a fully grown fembot is quite another. I have replaced Tabitha on the altar. A dozen hooded figures surround me, doing their best to look menacing. But I get the feeling this is the first time they have attempted a human sacrifice.
Satan will hear us when we sacrifice this maiden,
the head man declares. I know it is the head man from the guttural voice. I don't know why he is bothering with the mask. I wonder if now is the right time to tell him about his daughter.
He will not ignore the violation of an innocent,
the parson agrees. So he too is a raving lunatic. Just my luck.
Satan will not reject the blood of a virgin.
I see the sharp knife in his hands. I can just picture him salivating behind that mask. The pervert. That doesn't sound very Christian behaviour, Parson Nathaniel.
I am not the parson,
he insists, riled by my recognition of his voice.
I am Satan's high priest, and you will help us to bring him here to hasten the end of days.
You're going to sacrifice me? The parson nods, his eyes sparkling with glee behind the papier-mâché mask. A pussy won't do.
We have tried cats, we've tried chickens, we have even tried sheep. But Satan will not ignore the sacrifice of a virgin such as yourself.
Ah, I don't quite know how to break it to him. Actually,
You're not married, are you?
the headman asks, suddenly anxious. No, I'm not married. The two men exchange glances. Not an easy feat through those tiny eye holes.
Well then, so long as you are a maiden.
Yes, but I'm not a...
Beggars cannot be choosers,
the headman insists.
Your death will be an affront to God himself,
the parson declares with hypocritical relish.
Great Satan will see our dedication, and he will reward us.
If you say so.
And now is the time, brothers.
The chanting begins again. Parson Nathaniel raises his dagger high above his head, while the other robed figures dash about like low-rent dervishes. The parson is going to get one hell of a surprise when he thrusts that knife into my chest. An electric shock, I shouldn't wonder. Not that I will gain much satisfaction from it if he hits something vital. I could try shooting him, but the angle is a bit awkward. A pistol shot rings out across the crypt. Jonathan Clemens is standing at the foot of the stairs. Bless him, the young schoolteacher has come to rescue me.
Leave her alone,
he calls out with commendable authority. Unfortunately, his pistol is an old-fashioned flintlock, a one-shot affair. The hooded figures turn on him at once. I don't think he'll have time to reload before they grab him. I make the most of the distraction. My wrists are bound, but with a bit of effort I should be able to wriggle free. Before I can begin, however, I notice a slight change in the length of my fingernails. The plastic is expanding, the nails sharpening. I glance up at a window high in the far wall of the crypt. It is just like the one back in the laboratory. Light is pouring through it from the outside. Not sunlight, moonlight. I am changing again. My claws have extended far beyond their natural scope. I slash away at the rope and my bonds fall apart. Anger starts to consume me as my body slowly transforms. This time I am aware of the process. I can even take a moment to enjoy the horrified looks of the hooded men as I pull myself up from the sacrificial altar. I let out an animal roar, but I don't need the claws. My boobs are still functioning, and at last the metal rods slip into place.
Down, Clemens!
I manage to snarl through a mouthful of fangs. The man doesn't need telling twice. I open fire and cut a swathe through the astonished Satanists. Then I jump down from the altar, my feet nothing now but gnarled claws, and move in to hack away at my tormentors. I give a howl of joy as my nails slash viciously at the hooded brethren. I haven't had this much fun since I massacred a plane load of Nazis in South America. One man, cleverer than the others, grabs a flaming torch and flashes it in my direction. I shy away and the others follow suit. Together they back me towards the far wall, where Jonathan Clemens is cowering, desperately trying to reload his pistol. I am not sure whether he is intending that for me or for the Satanists. I lift a slab of stone from an adjacent tomb and hurl it across the room. It crashes to the floor, scattering the brothers in its wake. I grab hold of a gargoyle protruding from the wall, intent on flinging it the same direction, but all at once the ground starts to shift beneath me. Before I know what is happening, I am no longer in the crypt, but in a narrow tunnel leading away from the church. A secret passageway. Clemens is gibbering on the ground beside me. The floor has revolved beneath us. The tunnel is pitch black, and my infrared does not appear to be working. I growl again, and the schoolteacher shrinks away from me. But I am not going to hurt him. I have better things to do. I have a sneaking suspicion I know where this tunnel leads. The brethren will not be able to follow us. There is a metal bar that comes down to prevent the wall from spiralling backwards. Someone must have left it up the last time they went through, and it is a simple matter to slot it back into place. The hard part is convincing Jonathan Clemens to follow me.
What are you?
He trembles. Away from the moonlight, my body is slowly coming back under my control. All manner of self-repair mechanisms are beavering away, and the damage caused by the Count's potion is gradually being reversed. That is how I have managed to retain my awareness. Even so, I am struggling to regain my voice.
Don't know,
I grunt.
You come.
I sound like a caveman. Clemens is not moving.
I've found Madeline in the confessional. She's been murdered, sucked dry of blood. Did you do that? It was Count. You come.
I swallow hard, and at last I regain control of my mouth. Come with me, please.
I don't understand what's happening.
Count Vetrikinski made me drink one of his potions. It transformed me. But I'm me again now, honestly. The villagers are right, though. He is a vampire after a fashion. It's him who's been preying on the villagers.
But the Satanists?
They're small fry. They've only been sacrificing animals up to now.
And the machine guns in your...
I kneel down in front of him. Look, I'll explain everything later. But we can't stay here. And we can't go back into the crypt, not with all those Satanists hammering against the wall. We need to get up to the castle. He nods numbly. I take his hand and guide him away from the church. It is a long uphill walk. The tunnel is cramped and the roof low. This pathway must have been here for centuries, I say. It is certainly full of dust. Clemens coughs and pulls out a handkerchief from his coat pocket. Count Vetrikinski must have used it hundreds of times to steal into the village without being seen.
The parson is right,
Clemens says, fondling the crucifix at his neck.
That man is evil incarnate.
I don't think that will do you any good, I tell him. And the parson isn't quite as righteous as you might think. We move through a set of curtains into a large stone chamber, a room not dissimilar to the crypt we have left behind. I am not sure whether this one is a dungeon or a tomb. Sarcophagi dominate the wide floor, but there are weapons and implements of torture too. Most of the sarcophagi are open to the air, and there are corpses visible within them. Some of these are mummified, but others are strangely preserved, as if they are asleep. Clemens lifts his hands to his mouth in horror.
That's the cartman's daughter,
he observes, looking down at a pretty, pale figure with stitches across her forehead. So, the Count doesn't just drink their blood. He uses the corpses for his experiments, the devil. This is worse than I feared. We have to stop this, Jonathan. We have to... I turn around, but the schoolteacher has fainted dead away. Why do nice men always have to be such wimps? I leave him unconscious in a corner and make my way through the crypt. There are cells here and all kinds of vile equipment. An iron maiden, a rack, plenty of swords and knives too. What suffering this place must have seen. A heavy oak door at one end leads up into the castle proper. Thankfully, it is not locked, and even with my long white dress, I am able to make my way up the steps without too much difficulty. The castle seems deserted, but it is after dark now, so it is as well to be careful. Count Vetrikinski is probably up and about somewhere. I move cautiously through the dining room. A fire is blazing in the hearth, and there is food on the table, but no other signs of life. A bat flutters in through the windows. I move across to them and gaze down at the village. The full moon is high in the sky. My body ripples, but the transformation is held at bay. The potion has finally worn off. That is not my only concern, however. There are lights flickering about down there, burning torches heading up the path towards the castle. I don't think I seriously injured any of those Satanists in the crypt, though it wasn't for want of trying. The head man certainly escaped. He must know by now that his daughter has been killed, and he must have guessed there is a passageway between the castle and the church. A lynch mob is being raised to confront the Count. The villagers will be here in less than 20 minutes. I pass out of the dining hall and make my way to the front entrance. There is no one around. The manservant Karloff must be otherwise engaged, so I step forward quietly and undo the latch on the main door. I have made a decision. All work at Castle Nastasia must be destroyed. Count Vetrikinski is in his laboratory. I enter to find him in a passionate embrace. Ingrid is baring her neck, allowing him to suck her blood. No, it is not Ingrid. It is Victoria, the younger twin. Ingrid is standing back, her eyes wide, enjoying the spectacle. Then she catches sight of me and her expression sours. The Count looks up and drops the girl. "And so you return," he observes. "And you are yourself again." "Your potion certainly had an effect, but it's over now." I move across to Victoria, who is lying dazed on the floor. I sit her up. She has lost a lot of blood, but she is still alive. "Isn't one sister enough?"
"Miss Ingrid brought her here as a sign of her devotion to satisfy my needs. I am beginning to think she may make the perfect bride after all."
I stare at Ingrid in disgust. "You'd sacrifice your own sister." Her eyes glisten mischievously. "For a shot at immortality? You bet I would." "I thought you wanted to marry me," I say to the Count.
"The potion reveals the true character. You are an animal, a mindless automaton. You are not worthy to be my consort."
"And she is?" I gesture to the older twin.
"Beauty and obedience can cover a multitude of sins."
He glides over to his workbench and pours out some of the elixir.
"Come, my dear,"
he says, taking Ingrid by the hand.
"Drink again. Complete your transformation."
"Don't do it!" I cry. But Ingrid drinks greedily from the cup, and her body starts to tremble. The Count lets out a hideous laugh and then sweeps the girl up in his arms. I look around for a weapon. Bullets will be no good against them, and I am running low on ammunition in any case. How on earth am I going to kill them? I don't have a stake or a scimitar. Sunlight is out of the question too. It's not even midnight yet. I just hope the head man has the foresight to bring a clove of garlic with him. "You made a mistake," I say. "Drinking the blood of the head man's daughter." Count Vetrikinski pulls back, confused.
"Madeline? I would not touch her. Her blood is not pure. I prey only on the weak and the vulnerable, those who will not be missed. I would not be so stupid as to—"
He looks at Ingrid. There is a glow around the young woman now. Her body temperature has evaporated, but her eyes are alight. "I was so hungry," she says. "When I left you last night, I crept through the tunnel out into the church." Doubtless leaving the swivelling wall unlocked. "And there, in the crypt, I came across my uncle and Madeline. They were naked and writhing on the altar. I waited in the shadows until my uncle left, and then I followed her up the stairs and took my fill."
"You fool!"
the Count cries.
The head man will rouse the village. He will not allow this to go unpunished.
He's already on his way, I tell them, and I doubt he's bringing a judge and jury with him. Count Vetrikinski smacks Ingrid hard across the face. That's no way to treat your new bride, I say. Ingrid bares her teeth, but the Count collects himself.
Very well. If the villagers insist on rising against me, then they will suffer the consequences. Let them feel the wrath of Count Ludwig Vetrikinski.
Oh dear. It's always a bad sign when villains start talking in the third person. He walks over to a cabinet and pulls open the metal doors. Inside there is a complex array of wires and machinery. I can hear the steady hum of electricity. It's already playing merry havoc with my audio sensors. The Count pulls a lever, and sparks fly out of the machine.
I have a whole army at my disposal,
he declares with unexpected glee.
I have been working for years, bringing back the recently deceased, reanimating their corpses. Now their time has come.
A light illuminates the far end of the laboratory. Karloff is standing in an open-fronted booth, and electricity is crackling across his body. His arms lift up, and a few seconds later he steps out of the container fully recharged. I have a nasty feeling the same thing is happening to those other corpses down in the dungeon.
Grab the android,
Vetrikinski commands.
Take her upstairs and confront that unwashed rabble.
Karloff lumbers towards me. I click my machine guns into place and open fire. The servant staggers briefly, bits of his flesh flying across the laboratory, but he is undeterred. My boobs stutter to a halt. I am out of ammunition before I have even managed to get a shot at his head.
Bullets will not help you,
the Count sneers.
Come, see my warriors in action.
Karloff grabs my wrist and drags me towards the stairs. I decide not to put up a fight. There is a danger he will snap my hand off, and I didn't think to bring a spare. Ingrid is giggling with delight. This is such fun! Am I bulletproof too? Count Vetrikinski draws the girl to him.
You are immortal, my darling.
He glides up the stairs as if on a cushion of air, his new bride floating happily beside him. The mob are already thumping across the drawbridge, but I can hear the sound of animated corpses too making their way up from the dungeons. The mummies arrive first, some bandaged, some unencumbered with clothing. They are an awesome sight, and not in a good way.
This is the perfect test.
Count Vetrikinski beams as we gather in the main hall.
My new warriors in action at last.
You've been building an army, I breathe. The Count shakes his head.
I've been demonstrating a principle. The world powers will be clamouring at my door. An army of the dead, unstoppable, unquestioning. I have the technology.
You're insane!
No, my dear. It is the world that is insane. It is my armies that will bring peace.
He steps back to allow the mummies through. The main door of the castle swings open ahead of us. The headman is standing at the front of an angry mob. He holds a pitchfork in one hand and a burning torch in the other. Behind him stands Parson Nathaniel, his arm in a sling but his eyes alight with righteous zeal.
You killed my daughter!
The headman snarls, gesturing angrily at Count Vetrikinski.
Now I'm going to cut your head off and feed it to the birds."
He flinches at the sight of the mummies but stands his ground as the decaying corpses lurch slowly towards him. Some of the villagers are armed with spears, which they hurl at the advancing figures. One strikes home, but the lumbering mummy continues forward, even with the spear sticking out of its crotch.
"You see,"
the Count boasts,
"you see how invincible they are."
The headman thrusts a flaming torch at a second slow-moving corpse, and the creature instantly bursts into flames. No matter how clever the inventor, they always manage to overlook something obvious. "You didn't make them flame-resistant, then?" I ask.
"No!"
Vetrikinski cries as the mummy starts to burn.
"This cannot be!"
Ingrid realizes the danger. The mummies cannot save them after all. "Come, my darling, we must flee." She grabs the Count's hand and pulls him down toward the dungeons. Karloff grabs me around the waist and clomps after them, abandoning his fellow corpses just as the fight is beginning to get really nasty. Count Vetrikinski is in a foul mood as we descend the stairs.
"All my work in ruins."
"But we can escape together, darling. We can start again."
"Cease your prattling, girl."
All trace of the gentleman villain has evaporated in the sudden turnaround. Karloff throws me forward into the dungeon, then closes up the door from the outside and returns to the bloody fray. "Quickly, the secret passage!" Ingrid suggests as I struggle to regain my feet. The two vampires head towards the tunnel entrance. I glance around quickly. The dungeon is a veritable armoury. All manner of grandiose weaponry is lined up along the outer walls. I grab a convenient mace and hurl it at the Count's back as he makes for the secret passageway. It embeds itself between his shoulder blades, but the man does not flinch. Instead, he turns around with an irritated scowl on his face.
"Fool,"
he sneers contemptuously.
"You cannot kill what does not live."
"Tell that to the flaming mummies." I see a flicker of movement behind the Count. A shadowy but warm-blooded figure is creeping up on him. If I can just keep his attention for a moment. "It's over, Vetrikinski," I say. "You have been defeated. Even if you escape, no one will take you seriously. Invincible monsters that catch light at the slightest spark, you'll be a laughing stock." His eyes glow red with anger. He is about to launch himself at me when a flashing blade cleaves straight through his neck. A look of astonishment erupts across his face. His head wobbles for a moment and then pitches forward onto the ground. The headless body hesitates, as if uncertain what to do, and then decides to join the rest of him on the floor. Standing behind the corpse is Jonathan Clemens. He is carrying a heavy sword. The schoolteacher is shivering with fear. I don't think he's ever killed anyone before. The poor lamb may not believe in vampires, but even he knows decapitation is the most effective way to destroy them. The body on the floor is already starting to decompose. In a matter of seconds, it will be dust. Ingrid lets out a strangled cry, staring in horror at her lost love. Then she turns on Clemens. This time the schoolteacher does not know how to react. Decapitating a villainous old man is one thing. Chopping the head off a schoolgirl is quite another. "She's a vampire too," I tell him. He can see the fangs clearly enough. "You must destroy her." But he cannot do it. He is just too nice. Ingrid launches herself at his neck and starts to bite him. I jump on top of her and attempt to pull her off. We collapse as a threesome onto the floor and writhe about, each trying to gain the upper hand. The schoolteacher's sword has clattered away, but I hook it back with my foot and, with a rather desperate kick,
send it flying through the air. I was hoping to catch it, but my aim is slightly off, and Ingrid cries out as the sword embeds itself in her neck. She slumps forward and the blade cuts deeper. I grab hold of her shoulders, pushing the skull away from them, and with a final rip of flesh, the head rolls off, and at last the body lies still. Clemens pulls himself out from underneath her. Unlike the Count, Ingrid does not turn immediately to dust. She has not been a vampire long enough for that. The schoolteacher lets out a pitiful cry as he rises to his feet and surveys the scene.
Ingrid! Oh, dear God! Ingrid!
I am already heading for the stairs. This isn't over yet. There is a battle going on upstairs, and I want to make sure the right side is winning. I hitch up my dress, pelt through the door, which luckily Karloff forgot to lock, and leap up the stone steps 3 at a time. A host of smouldering corpses lie scattered across the main hall. The battle is over. Villagers and mummies lie together in a pool of blood and bandages. Karloff is one of the dead, or rather, to be strictly accurate, several of them. I see the parson lying wounded in a corner, and I kneel down beside him.
I gave in to temptation,
he mutters.
Satan took possession of me. I could not help myself.
The perennial excuse of the dirty old man. I think you'll find it was lust rather than the devil.
I am a sinner,
he agrees.
And I have paid the price.
He slumps forward, dead. The head man lies decapitated nearby. Some of the mummies are still twitching, though. Help me! A voice calls out from below. It is Victoria. She is down in the laboratory. The fighting must have spread down there. Beakers have been smashed, equipment overturned, and now a fire is raging. That is not good, with so many dangerous chemicals lying about. I fight my way through thick smoke, struggling to make out a human silhouette amid the flames. I grab hold of an arm, but it is not attached to anything, so I throw it away. It crawls angrily back into the fog. I find a foot, and this one is warm. It is Victoria. I pull her up and swing her over my shoulder, then clamber back up the stairs. An explosion erupts behind me, and I nearly lose my balance. The whole castle is shuddering. Bits of masonry are falling everywhere. Jonathan Clemens has gathered his wits and emerged from the dungeon.
Victoria! She's alive!
Only just, I say. We need to get out of here. I shoo Clemens towards the main door. We dash across the drawbridge, and all at once there is a mighty explosion. I am sent flying through the air. Victoria flips over my head, and Jonathan Clemens crashes to the ground in front of me. I thump down on top of him. The castle shudders and implodes behind us with a shattering roar. If there was anyone left alive in there, they are certainly dead now, even members of the undead. I look down at the battered schoolteacher, who is staring up at me in awe.
You saved us! You saved us both!
He exclaims. The 3 of us hobble back down to the village. The remaining villagers come out of their hovels to greet us, but explanations are brief. I return to the vicarage and carry Victoria up to her bedroom. She will recover in time. Actually, she is beginning to look better already. Jonathan Clemens stands in the doorway and glances from her to me.
I am so glad you were there,
he says diffidently.
You saved us all. You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever met.
His eyes are misting over. Oh dear, I recognize the signs.
You must stay with us. I think I may be falling in love with you.
He shakes his head in disbelief.
And I do not even know what you are.
I'm a fembot, I say. An android. We don't really do love. But I'm happy to have sex with you if you like. Unless, of course, you'd rather look after Victoria. He looks back guiltily into the room. I know what he is thinking. The man may be an innocent, but he is not incorruptible.
She's very young, he says.
I'm sure she won't mind. I laugh and grab hold of his lapels. His eyes widen in astonishment. He really is wet behind the ears. It looks like I am going to have to take the lead in this relationship. I pull the schoolteacher towards me and plant a heavy kiss on his lips. He swallows hard, but makes no attempt to resist. I kiss him again, and Jonathan Clemens lets out a sigh of pleasure.
Oh, Sally!
That was Bride of the Vampire by Samantha Faulkner, narrated by Alison Campbell. Copyright Samantha Faulkner, 2018. For news of other titles in this series, visit the website fembotsally.com.